Good morning, everybody. It's 10:30, and welcome to the resident meeting of Village on the Green, brought to you from the Longwood Room and also being recorded on Channel 3. I'm Ann Blair, your council chair. This is our monthly resident meeting, and I'm going to turn the program over almost immediately to our executive director, Joey Mukherjee. He has lots to tell us. And after that, I'll go over our council minutes of last week, okay? Joey, welcome.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Good. All right, so we've got a full agenda today. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about some strategy implementation. Part of this is kind of my effort in grounding myself as I enter this community, but I also want to help frame some of the work that we're doing, help you to understand what are some of the metrics that we are shooting for, what are some of the goals, and ultimately how does that support our strategy as a whole, both from an enterprise-wide level and also at a community level. So lots of slides with tiny font to share, but I promise I'll have the final slides to Sue this afternoon, so you can grab a copy of it if you would like. We're going to talk about the culinary program reset and the recent visit from the Unidyne leadership team we had. I want to talk about Happy or Not, the system, and how it helps support our team. Share a little bit of information about some work being done on the cable-based entertainment option. Give you an update from sales, the foundation, some ongoing projects, as well as the entryway renovation project. Last, my favorite subject, COVID-19. Just review when our next meeting is and take any questions. So for me, new executive director, joining a new organization, mission, vision, values are super important. Mission, vision, where are we going, and what's the manner in which we're going to get there. Very important for me to understand so that all of our team members are pulling in the right direction. Now, I know this has been shared with you before, so I'm not going to sit here and read it to you, but want you to be aware that this really is kind of a grounding principle for me. LifeSpace is unique in the sense that it has a very clear strategy tied in with its mission and vision. Essentially 3 pillars, which you also may be familiar with: stabilize, grow, and transform. Right now, our real big focus is in stabilize. So that's improving the services that we offer of our core business. So we're going to kind of start diving into some certain layers of that to help you understand how we look at it from a management perspective, and also how you can help us in that process. Obviously, values, very important. It's the how we do things, right? So with our team members, I do a monthly town hall with our team members, and we're going back to basics, right? Making sure they understand all of this. Information that you see is the same information that they're going to see. So when we talk about that stabilize strategy, that pillar, it's really broken down into this concept of best in class. Okay, that's what the organization, the terminology that we're using. And for us, we're looking at 4 key areas, okay? Team member engagement, resident satisfaction, also known as the resident net promoter score. We're looking at occupancy, and we're looking at the net operating margin, okay? So what does it mean for us to get to best in class? There are very specific metrics associated with that. So for team member engagement, that means 81% and above, okay? And best in class is really not just for senior living organizations, but all types of industries, all service sectors. It is not limited in scope. So we really are trying to compare ourselves to premier organizations. When it comes to the resident net promoter score, best in class is 51 and above. For occupancy and net entrance fees, 90% occupancy and above. And then for net operating margin, 10% net operating margin and above. Now, are we going to get there in 1 year? Absolutely not. Are we going to get there in 2 years or 3 years? Some of these are a bit of a reach, especially when you look at our net operating margin and where we have been. But this is kind of the definition of best in class and where we're going. So how are we going to track this performance at a community level and across the enterprise? So we're breaking those 4 categories into some tools that we're going to be using. So with team members, we have an engagement survey, just like we do the survey with the residents, which will be twice this year. We're going to do 2 of those with the team members. We track retention, how well are we keeping our team members that are employed with us, and then turnover, how quickly are positions cycling through. For the customer, for the residents, we're looking at our CMS 5-star and those higher levels of living. What's our quality ratings? What is our survey outcomes? We're looking at the resident satisfaction survey and specifically the Net Promoter Score question that's coming out of there. And then also we're tracking the number of resident referrals. That to us, if you feel confident in recommending your friends and family here, that has a correlation to your satisfaction. In terms of occupancy, again, resident referrals is something that we're looking at. We're looking at referrals in the higher levels of living. So our third-party relationships, the physicians, the hospitals, do they feel comfortable in referring their patients to us for therapy? We're looking at how many folks are moving in, how many folks are moving out. Really, that's kind of attrition. How quickly are we cycling through our resident population? And then obviously occupancy again. And then for financial, we're looking at net entrance fees, how many new residents are joining, and what kind of entry fee are we bringing in? What's our net operating margin? So that's, you take all of your revenues, you subtract your expenses, and fingers crossed you are in the red, you're in the black and not in the red, right? And then we're looking at net cash production ultimately. So that kind of takes your net entrance fees and your operating margin and sees how you're doing from a cash perspective. So that's kind of the scorecard we're using going forward. Now for me as an executive director, I want to know how we're doing at a community level, but it's also important to understand where we are at an enterprise level. So for 2022, now not all of the items I covered on the previous slide are on here, as it's kind of an evolving for 2023, but very similar in 2022. So the green, we did all right. We did all right. From where in that first column, the fiscal year 21 baseline, where we thought we were going to go in 2022, and then ultimately that last column, where did we actually finish up? Now you can see there's some red on there. One of the ones that we're going to kind of keep coming back to today is the Net Promoter Score. So in 21, they had that established baseline of a score of 45. We're trying to get to 51 and above to be best in class, right? They expected to hold that score of 45. It went down to 26 as an enterprise, okay? Now we're gonna get into another layer of this, but I just wanted to show how it kind of cascades down from kind of a high organizational level to the community. You can see things that did go well, net entrance fees, we did very well, operating revenue, but man, operating expenses, we got beat up across the board. So you can see that operating expenses well above budget. The expected was 305 million. The actual was 330 million. So our net operating margin in the end was a negative 8.5 million as an organization. Net cash production, also below the target. So that's kind of the scorecard from an enterprise level. Now, we start drilling into community by community. Thankfully, being Village on the Green means we're at the bottom alphabetically, so it makes this chart somewhat easier to read, and that you just have to go straight to the bottom to find us. So this takes all of those kind of key scorecards and shows, okay, we saw at an enterprise level, now let's see at a community level. So engagement, 75% at Village on the Green. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. We're trying to get to 81, right, for best in class. Net Promoter Score, 41. Better than our peers, but still not good enough, right? Now, you look at that whole column, there isn't a single green there, right? So this is kind of helping the organization to focus on the areas that are really pain points for the residents. CMS 5-star, overall doing pretty well there. IL occupancy, there's some shining stars, there's some laggards there. Higher levels of living, we're doing great in that perspective. Net entry fees below budget, but still a positive 7.5 million there. We did well from an operating revenue perspective, but the operating expense is what got us, right? So that's where you see the net operating margin for Village on the Green was a negative 2.5 million. Net cash production was positive when you look at those entrance fees and our net operating margin put together. So that kind of shows you where we are, right? That was 2022. So again, coming back to this, when I look at our programs, our services, our offerings here at Village on the Green, I'm coming back to kind of these four things, right? How are we moving the needle in these areas? So we had an opportunity, we had some senior leaders from LifeSpace Leadership. We also had senior leaders from the Compass Group and Unidyne, Compass Group being kind of the parent company of Unidyne, here on site to meet with our resident council members as well as the culinary committee. And that was kind of part of an action step that the organization has felt, look, you saw what our net promoter score is. Across the board, enterprise-wide, it's all in the red. When they dive into that, they see the culinary program as a big driver of that. So they need to hit reset on that relationship with Unidyne. So there's a new CEO at Unidyne, effective September 1st. He came to our community, and really it was kind of about going to probably the more vocal communities in the LifeSpace organization. We got to represent Florida, yay! They also visited a community in Texas and I think one in Chicago area. To get a better understanding of what's going well, what's not going well, to talk to our team members, to experience the dining venues, take some tours, eat a meal with residents. I would say overall that conversation with our residents council and with our culinary committee, very positive, very frank. I think there's some low-hanging butter identified that we saw. I'll keep peddling that joke. And then there was also some more systemic issues that we need to work on. But I would say from a management perspective, I'm seeing some real investment and some change in this relationship. One of the big things is really empowering the executive director to take ownership of the culinary program. It's not a Unidyne program that we just happen to have. It's our program. We need to own it with our team members. So I am taking a more active role in that process. We're seeing a lot more help from Unidyne here in terms of training and resources to really get to the root of what some of our issues are. So overall, I think it was kind of an opportunity to say, hey, tell us where we're at. What can we do quickly to make some changes? What are we going to do long term to make some changes? And let's move this program forward. Let's move our program forward. Part of that is, okay, we've talked about some changes. We've talked about the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score comes to us, once every that's not me, is it? Okay, no, okay. Panic there. The Net Promoter Score, we only get that twice a year, right? But realistically, we need better information throughout the year to understand minute changes, how are we doing? So that's where Happy or Not comes in. So when I first came in the community, I saw these little stands with the smiley face buttons, and I kind of went, what exactly is that? Mm-hmm. So I've had a chance to sit down and go through some orientation and training with that, and I'll tell you, it's a super powerful tool, okay? I don't know how it was rolled out or how it was presented. I know one of the comments that came back from our session with the Unidyne group was, we want comment cards back at the table. I totally understand, the desire to have that comment card and be able to write it. Kind of my ask is that we use this Happy or Not system. So every time you have a meal, hit that button on the way out, okay? Because what this program is doing is it is collecting a lot of data, it is aggregating it, and it is digesting it and presenting it to the team members in a way that we can act on it, and it helps focus the issues. So we're not chasing a one-off variant. We're looking at here's systemic issues that have been identified. So we have access to this program real time. We get reports out of this left and right. This, just what you see here, is last month's summary, okay? So they have a whole happy index, but there's a net promoter score that this program calculates. So for me, I can have a real-time understanding of what is our net promoter score, are we trending in the right direction or not? This is last week, okay? So what you're seeing each day of the week, okay? Obviously your greens are good, your reds not so good, but what does this tell you? 2-4, what happened on the 4th, right? Clearly we had an issue there. But what this helps us is it helps focus our team members to go, okay, what do I need to address first? I need to dive into the information and the comments that were left on 2-4. And maybe they were all the same comment. The meatloaf was hard as a rock, right? That helps us get an actionable step as to, okay, how do we correct that and improve the score there, right? Comment cards are helpful. They give a lot of that information. But I know comment cards get stuffed into a pocket and then they forget, or they don't read them, or they don't, understand, oh, there's a trend here to be identified. Happy or Not puts that kind of that process out of the director's hands per se. And also in terms of an accountability, I don't necessarily see the comment cards, right? But I can log in and I can see what your comments were last night for dinner. So when I get a complaint of, meal was terrible last night, I go in and look. Is that a one-off sentiment, or is that, yep, 12 people said it was terrible last night. All right, I need to follow up with the team to find out what we're doing to make sure we fix that. This goes all the way through Unidyne. It also goes all the way through LifeSpace. So there are a lot of eyes looking at it. You don't always have to leave a comment, but hit the button. And if you have time to poke in a comment, please do. It doesn't have to be grammatically correct. It doesn't have to be spelled correctly. Just get us the gist of what the issue was, and that the more information you give, the better we can hone in on how we're doing. And again, we can track this over time, so we can see investments that we're making in raw food costs. Are they paying off? Well, they might not be if we're overcooking everything, right? So then we understand we've got a training issue. So it really does help kind of focus us. So I kind of make that ask of, please use that system. We have one here in the dining room. We also have one in assisted living. And that's been really good for me to understand, okay, what to spare, because it's 2 different kitchens, right? Might be similar programs, but they're 2 different kitchens, so they could be worlds apart different. So it does help kind of filter out from one level of living to another how we're doing. I feel like I've been flying through stuff. Any questions right now? Okay, I'm gonna keep flying then. All right. So a lot of this kind of, you can tie back, right? Net promoter score. We fix our culinary program, we're gonna move our net promoter score. We fix our culinary program, we're gonna improve net operating margin, right? Because we're managing our expenses, we're managing our raw food costs. Another thing that has kind of come up that was really kind of net promoter score driven is dissatisfaction with Senior TV, which is now known as Centrix. Centrix bought Senior TV. I think we still call it Senior TV, that's fine, but I tend to use them interchangeably, so I just don't want to cause confusion there. What the organization's doing, and they've tasked the Chief Information Officer, Ken Poinsett, with this, so I mean really it's the top in terms of IT focus right now, to come up with an alternative, especially for the Florida market, for a cable-based offering. So if you're not aware right now, Senior TV, that's actually a satellite service, okay? So what they're looking at is for essentially a hardwired cable offering, and here in Seminole, Orange, and Central Florida, it's Spectrum. So what Ken is going to be looking at is an alternative, not a requirement, but an option for you to potentially choose. You could say, I'm so fed up with Senior TV and losing it during a rainstorm that I want Spectrum. Or you might say, I had Spectrum, I would rather deal with Senior TV. The goal is to give you that option. It is not a replacement of Senior TV. We've made a significant investment in that infrastructure, so we're not going to abandon that. Ken did kind of mention, we probably have not invested over time in Senior TV equipment like we should have to keep it up to date and modernized and maybe address some of those quality issues. So they are looking at that as well. So Senior TV is going to come out and do an assessment and basically tell us, hey, here's what it's going to cost to get you back up to speed here. So we're not gonna cast senior TV aside. Essentially, we're just gonna try to have some options to hopefully improve your satisfaction with it. The goal, for what is included, to keep a comparable offering in terms of channel options, in terms of price, which is included. That's kind of his goal. So he took feedback from the resident council, which thank you, Stan, for kind of coalescing a lot of that information. And he's gonna take that and gonna have his conversations with Spectrum TV. I don't know what the timeline is on that, but I know he's working on it like very actively. So hopefully to have some more information for you on that. We did get into the conversation of internet reliability, telephone, voice over internet protocol. We kind of started getting to some of maybe the, hey, bringing in Spectrum or a different provider might give us some other opportunities. He took all of that feedback and kind of acknowledged, yep, those are all things that we're gonna have to work on, but right now the focus is a TV package for him and kind of the eminent need to address. So when we get some more information, we're gonna bring that back to you and say, hey, here's what Ken's found and here's what we're looking at. So when we talk about net operating margin, we talk about our occupancy, sales. Sales really drives that process, right? Especially if we're managing our attrition, and y'all stop kicking the bucket here. So end of month census for January was 193, which is 73.6%. We did not have any move-ins, which is typical for a January because you get a big push at the end of the year. And typically kind of that first month in the first quarter is you're kind of reloading. We had 2 move-outs and we did take 2 new deposits. So right now, deposits on hand, we have 9. And so assuming we continue, our unit turnovers happen in a timely manner, folks are able to move in, we're targeting a March 31st census of 200, so 76%, 76.3. So very important work there being done by the sales team. So for January, we had a big push in terms of a resident referral program. We're going to see a new one every single month. We had 12 total resident referrals last month, which is really, really amazing. Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you remember how many we had in total for 2022 resident referrals?
Exact number?
Ballpark.
I don't know off the top of my head, but ballpark was around 35.
35 all last year. 12 last month, right? You are our best referral, right? I want to give a big shout out to Ron and Nancy Kenny with 6 referrals. Special thanks to Candy Sterling, Ron and Marilyn Eskin, Fanny Griffin, Frank Powers, new resident moving in February, and Jane Wahlberg for also referring new neighbors. And as a part of that kind of incentive for that month, it was a $100 gift card for each referral. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for the green bean. That's my goal.
Good, I'm glad. So now kind of turning our attention to February, a little bit of a different model. We already have 10 for the month, which is amazing, right? That is really gonna help us move our occupancy needle. The incentive's a little different. The community with the most referrals, those referrals will get a $200 gift card for each one, okay? Do need to be in to the sales office by 2 p.m. on the 28th in order to get entered into the system and make sure we qualify for our bonuses. If you are making referrals, do let your referrals know that you are referring them. So when we will call, we're not taking them by surprise too much. So do appreciate you sharing that information with the referral as well. So foundation update. Employee Appreciation Fund letters have been distributed. If you have not gotten one, please let me know, because you should have. Also, please check that the amount is correct. So after the letters were distributed, I think the foundation found that there were errors, and so please just double check and make sure that that's correct. If not, please let me know. I'm working with Kurt Gilo, who is the Interim Vice President of Development, on that matter. As just kind of a side note, remember the donations made to the fund prior to its kind of incorporation into the foundation are not tax deductible. The ones that are tax deductible were the ones made directly to the foundation. Those are tax deductible. So please contact me if you do have any issues with those foundation letters. So projects, we've got a good amount of work going on campus. The irrigation wells have been dug. We are in the process of essentially connecting those to our irrigation system. That's going to be complete by the end of this month. What that means is potentially a $5,000 a month savings in not using city water. That is huge. That is a huge, huge help. Another project that's underway right now is the LED lighting, so replacing the exterior campus lighting to LED units. That is underway. We've had a couple of hiccups, some workmanship issues, so their project manager from, their company head from Ohio is down today meeting with Tony to address some of that. So they hit the pause button yesterday. So they're gonna get that squared away and make sure they're doing a good job installing that. I know there was an issue with a faulty LED unit right out of the gate. So you might see that with the LED housings. You know, definitely let me know, let Tony know, so that we can get them to replace those units while they're on site. But that's going to be another program that, while it is a significant investment in infrastructure up front, the savings from an operational perspective are going to be immediate and help our electricity bill, which in the last year or so has gone a little crazy. Clubhouse renovation, that's going well with an asterisk. In terms of our mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire inspections, they're moving along quite nicely with that. I think they're going to do that work on time. The asterisk is 3 air conditioning units from Carrier. One of them we just found out is coming in March, so that's a good thing. 2 of them we don't know. And so we're trying to get some more information from Carrier as to when these units are going to arrive. Hopefully they just forgot to include them in the email. But if I know Carrier, it's because they're pushing it a little bit further. So we're on project with the bulk of it, but we can't get a certificate of occupancy without air conditioning, right? So we may be able to start doing some things in the space from a FF&E perspective. We may be, frankly, I think my office is going to move in there as soon as we can get a temporary certificate of occupancy, but I'll probably be the only one over there. But it gets me out of where I am right now and a little closer to y'all. But until we get that certificate of occupancy, we're going to be a little bit in limbo there. So, you know, just kind of full transparency, that's what, right now, we're a little uneasy as to where the status of those 2 Carrier AC units are. Want to give you a heads up about an upcoming project in the main kitchen that involves the dish room. We have a dishwasher, a fairly old one from Ecolab, our vendor. We have a new vendor, Diversey, and they have a new dishwasher, which is here. We need to schedule some time to break down the Ecolab one and install the Diversey dishwasher. But we also have some other work that we want to accomplish at the same time. Kind of the wall that is shared with the dish room is the Sable room, and we know that there's probably some stuff behind that wall that we need to address. So kind of our goal is, okay, if we have to take this machine down, let's take care of that wall once and for all. So we're probably looking at a 3-4 day shutdown of that dish machine. The kitchen will continue to operate. The work is going to happen at night, but it does mean for those 3 or 4 days, we're going to go to paper products, okay? The kitchen utensils are going to get all bussed to the Oaks and washed there and back. It's stainless steel, it's cast iron, it can handle it. What cannot handle that kind of transfer, the glasses, the plates, and all of that. So we're going to kind of give you some more information as we come up to it. We are kind of going through the approval process right now to do that work in the wall. So we're probably talking, you know, March-ish for that. It might even be a little sooner, but I want to get this on your radar as, hey, this is something that's going to impact you. We're going to have to go to paper products for that stretch while that big dish machine is being switched out. And really, that work in the wall is being taken care of. Landscape vendor. So we have put our current vendor on notice. It's a 90-day period, so they will be here with us through the end of April. But in the beginning of May, we have a new organization coming in, DS Landscape. Their yard is actually just down the road from us. And then their subsidiary Foxtail is going to be coming on board to do all the lawn, shrub sprays, fertilization, and fire ant management, which we have not been doing all this time. Kind of full transparency, TriMac was an organization I worked with at Westminster, and I relieved them there and brought DS in. So I went through an extensive RFP process when I was with Westminster, and right now, just kind of the state of our property and the improvement that we need to make, I just kind of made that decision of, yep, I know DS, the work that they do, so they're gonna be taking over that. They will not be here every single day, so you will not have to listen to leaf blowers every single day. Typically what they do, a property of our size is 2 days, and they come in with multiple crews and they are flying, right? But they do a very nice job. They mulch all the cuttings, they take care of the weeds. You're gonna see, guys on a lawnmower, he's gonna stop and he's gonna weed a whole bed, and then he's gonna leave a little pile, or he's gonna blow the leaves and leave a little pile, because then they come back and they actually bag everything up and take it with them, instead of just blowing it into the bed across the sidewalk. So I think you're gonna see some really big improvements. They're gonna handle the palm trimming. For my resident a horticulturalist, they used the University of Florida's recommendation on palm trimming. He gave me the whole printout of it. So crepe myrtles, they do that at the appropriate times, but all of that's going to be included in the service fee. Changing landscapers, getting better service, and adding fertilization and weed control and all of that, we're going to save about $5,000 a month.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now some of that we're going to take and kind of reinvest, and there's a lot of really sad crepe myrtles out there, so we probably need to pull some trees and plant some new ones and shrink some beds. There's a lot of really big beds which require weeding and mulching. If we shrink it, make it more sod, it's a little bit more manageable. So we're going to try and take some of those savings and kind of improve the overall landscape. But then also, frankly, I need some of those savings as well in our kind of march towards net operating margin. So it's going to be a little bit of a balance there. Help occupancy, help net promoter score, and help our bottom line. So I wanted you to be aware of that change. Now, big, I'm sure, part of the rumor mill right now is the entryway renovation project. So has some developments since my last meeting with resident council on Thursday. The initial scope that was shared with the redevelopment committee after the feedback and some kind of pointed questions and some additional fact finding, they're hitting the pause button and they're gonna redo the scope, okay? So I'm not going to share the drawings with you, but I'm going to share with you what they're looking at, because I do want you to be informed. But as soon as we have a new scope, what I've asked is that they come back and present to the redevelopment committee, kind of like we did with the cable-based program. I want them to essentially give us that information, let the residents, provide feedback to your resident council rep. We'll feed that up, collect that in a document, and share that with the project team for them to review, and then also give us feedback. They need to say, yes, we're going to do this, or no, we're not going to do this, right? So you get some closure on that. Yes, ma'am?
The entryway, are you talking about as you enter this?
Yep, I'm going to get, good question. You're leading me to the next slide, but I just want to kind of stress, yes, this is a pause, but it's a good pause, right? It's based on feedback, it's based on more information, so that's a good thing. It does not bypass the feedback process. My expectation is that you get another shot at it to look at it. Now, that might be only one more time where we get that feedback, but I'm going to insist that we have that opportunity. So what are we talking about exactly? So the main entry of the community. So that's the guardhouse area, updated signage, updated guardhouse, and add a focal feature. The focal feature could be a water feature, it could be something, just to draw your attention to the community's entrance, right? It includes the clubhouse entry, so the porte cochere of this building. So redoing that, redoing the whole drive, okay? We need, the parking that we have right now is not ADA compliant, so any kind of renovation we do has to make that ADA compliant. The porte cochere is no longer up to code, so fire trucks can't drive underneath it, so we have to essentially redo that, make it bigger and taller. Make it more welcoming too, because as you come up, really the first thing you see is a do not enter sign for traffic management, so we need to kind of address some of that. Also the service yard, you kind of have a straight shot at the broken fence and brick wall and all of the inner goings of the service area. It's to kind of shrink that entrance, pull it back away from the road a little bit, kind of orient the wall so you're not looking inside of it all the time, but that staff can still get in and out easily. And then when there is a semi-truck where they need to pull the big yard roll-off container, they can do that and then close the gate and move on. So they're also looking at the space from the main entry to the clubhouse. So kind of that main path, improving walkability, so better paths, and trying to get some activity towards the front of the community, right? You come in very tranquil, not trying to disrupt that, but we also want to create some spaces that bring residents out. So that could be pickleball, it could be a bigger, better putting green, it could be a dog park, it could be a kind of pergola coverage, shaded seating area. It could be a lot of things, and that's where the resident feedback is going to be really important to do that. Because in this project, they're setting aside funds for making the outdoors more usable, more accessible, and tying in to the rest of the campus, right? So you can get from point A to point B without having to walk in the road. Is it all going to be accomplished in one project? No, but right now from the main entry to the clubhouse is kind of that focus. So I'm not going to share the drawings because honestly I think the drawings are going to change a lot from what was initially shown and based on the feedback. But when we do get updated ones, I'll definitely bring that. Yes, ma'am?
Who is in charge of that program?
So that is Russell Mock, who's the VP of Design and Construction and something else. It's a very long title.
Development Design.
Russell Mock.
How do you spell that?
M-A-U-K.
M-A-U-K. So we're going to have an opportunity to weigh in on this. Yes, ma'am.
The feedback, how is that conducted?
So when I present, kind of here's the scope for, you'll have a copy of that, and then my recommendation is to share that feedback in writing to your resident council rep so they can kind of collate that and bring that to resident council, and then we can filter that up into one document. Anne, are you feeling good about that process? Sure. Okay. So, because we need it organized. I don't want 1,000 emails to Jesse and Russell, because it's not the way we're going to do it, right? We're gonna follow an organized process. Okay, we're going to follow an organized process. So this is where, if you want a say in this is a great opportunity to get involved with resident council, get involved with the committees, because we're going to use this structure, these elected representatives, to ferry the feedback on through. Because, the one-offs, it's the squeaky wheel, right? And it'll get addressed in a sense, but there's a lot more power to this is an elected body conveying their concerns, and it elicits like a overall, like everybody has to respond versus like, yeah, we'll take care of that. So we're going to leverage this governance that we have. So I want to make sure everybody can comment, but it goes to resident council rep, that gets to the council, we bring it all together, and then we can share that as a, hey, here's what our overall concerns are, and then have them respond to that.
Do you think it might be less costly than the initial?
It may be less costly than the initial estimate just because of the rework that's being done. I think so. One of the concerns was the cost of the program, of the project, and I think that was heard. But we'll see
We'll see.
how it actually pans out.
When
Yeah.
do you expect the new proposal?
I don't know. I
You
don't
didn't
know.
give
I got
them
a
a
call.
deadline?
I mean, literally, I got a call last night going, hit the brakes. So, you know, it's going to have to go back to the architect who, you know, the architect came on site and did kind of a study to understand what, you know, what is existing, what are the challenges, what are we trying to address. So he's going to have to, you know, come up with some alternative solutions to those challenges.
Their initial thought was to get this done by the end of 2023.
So yes, so Russell was very aggressive in that he wanted to do it this year. It is budgeted for this year. Kind of my experience is, you know, if you can at least turn over a pile of dirt, that is enough to say to finance, we have started the project, and please hold these funds for us to complete this project. So they have an aggressive timetable to accomplish this, but it's not going to come at the expense of our opportunity to provide feedback.
You say it's budgeted for this year. How much was the budget?
I understand somewhere in the neighborhood of $3 to $4 million.
How does that impact our entry fee?
That was a question that was asked because we have our astute financial residents, and then I think it was not answered just based on the fluidity of the budget. But that is kind of something I committed to. Once we have some more cost certainty, that there would be, you know, some sort of response to that for residents to understand what that means from a financial perspective to Village on the Green residents. So I don't have an answer for that, but I'm committed to getting you one once we get a little bit more certainty.
So you're saying it would affect the entrance fee?
I mean, would it affect the entrance?
The monthly fee, I'm sorry, the monthly fee.
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest, because there's a certain amount of capital improvement every single year that's set aside for that. It depends where the money's coming from. Is it bond finance? I mean, ultimately, it's all resident money, right? So yes, the answer is it will impact residents. Now, in what form? Has it already impacted you in the existing fees? Is it a new fee? I don't know.
I think the suggestion was made that how it was being paid and how it was going to affect us be part of the initial proposal.
Yes, and I'm hopeful that they heard that, and when we see the next scope, that's included. But if it's not, we're going to just keep asking until we get that. Yeah. Okay. So my last topic, COVID-19. This is a slide I go to. This comes from the state of Florida. It looks at kind of a 2-week span, and it goes back 10 weeks. This is for the entire state of Florida, so it's not just Seminole County. But that top shows you the number of new cases, and then the bottom one is the case positivity, so the testing that's going on. You can see the end of December there, we had a peak, and just slowly it's starting to trail off. You know, anecdotally from a community perspective, I think every week we get a new positive, be it a resident or a team member. So it's certainly out there. This new variant, I think they're calling it the Kraken variant, has had an impact in other life-based communities. We've had outbreaks in health centers, in independent living, and it has spread like within 2 or 3 days, the whole nursing center has it. So it is still out there, still something that we have to deal with. We've been lucky thus far here at Village on the Green to have isolated cases, but we remain vigilant and will continue to share these numbers as we continue to track them. So our next meeting is going to be Wednesday, March 8th, right here, 10:30 a.m. And I would like to open it up for questions before I turn it over back to Ann. Rumors? Ma'am?
I was just curious, is there a way to determine what percentage of our population here has kind of had COVID?
So the question is there a way to identify like what percentage of the population has had COVID? I know the organization has a file tracker that goes all the way back to the very beginning of COVID and tracks all of the cases. I can I can take a look and see. I could give you an approximate percentage by level of living of how many have had COVID. I could give you an approximate, because there might be duplicates in there. So, but I could get that for you. There's questions, Steve?
Back to culinary. For the last several years, every time when Chris would take the stage, some of us would say, when are you going back to drink cards? You have two events coming up in the next 2 weeks for Mardi Gras and for Valentine's. The place will be sold out. At least a third of the community will be getting adult libations. If you just time how long it takes for an experienced kid behind the bar, you're looking at 35 to 45 seconds, as opposed to just taking a piece of paper, punching it, and getting in and out. We can't understand why it can't be converted from this magic, although it's for a computer card, to just a plain piece of paper. Some people still have cards left over from the previous regime, and they're in and out when they present their card, and they don't have to want, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is, can we do something about getting back the paper punch cards for the drink supplies?
I will talk to culinary about it. Ma'am?
Some CCRCs have automated systems where the residents can enter their menu selections. I had
I cannot hear the question.
Some CCRs, whoops, that's.
We can hear you.
Some CCRCs have automated systems where residents can key in what they want for a meal. And I had heard a while back that we were considering doing that. Where does that stand?
So that was one of the items that came up in our conversation, kind of the use of technology, both from like a reservation perspective, from an ordering perspective. I'll tell you the full count point of sale system that we have, it's a good system. It has a lot of bells and whistles that we can use. I think there just hasn't been a sense of urgency with operationalizing that at a community level. So kind of the directive is to start looking at ways we can be more efficient and more productive using the technology that we have. So I think, yes, there's opportunity for that, but I also want to be respectful that we go through, the culinary committee and say, hey, this is what we're looking at, and get that resident feedback. Because, some residents super savvy with technology, others, aren't going to bother with it. So you almost have to have some redundancies built in. So we really need to kind of think through the process before we adopt any of that technology, that, we've got a good system in place, that, we don't just, roll something out that goes down in flames, not because the technology's fault, but because we didn't prepare well for it. So we're definitely going to be looking more at that, but no immediate plans just yet. Good questions. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I will turn it back over to Ann.
Joey, thank you. I thought that was really, really informative. I just really did a great job. I think there are a lot of projects going on, and to the best of his ability, he explained them all. And we'll just keep staying tuned on that. Now, let me consult our meeting, the council meeting. Of course, we did approve the minutes of the previous month, and we did also recognize our newcomers at the time. Last week, Arthur Stacy, who is in C106. I don't believe we have any newcomers since then, but if I've made a mistake, let me know. And our remembrances, Marilyn Schmidt, Fenton Carnes, and Jack Shantini. I like to say that out loud so that it is part of the record. I believe now, as to our committee, reports. I believe we started with the Finance Committee. Joey has already covered the thing about the Employee Appreciation Fund letters from LifeSpace. That was brought up at the council meeting, and they are, to our knowledge, have gone out to everybody who needs those for tax purposes. Al Porter also talked about the fact that the Finance Committee henceforth is going to focus more on quarterly reports rather than monthly reports. They, of course, will get the monthly reports, but they're not going to chew over them quite to the extent that we've done before. And I think we're still waiting for some answers on some of our finance questions. As to Neighbor, which Al Porter also heads, he was very encouraged by the sales and commented on the fact that Jesse had complimented us on our increased sales during the month. Diana Ryklewski is updating, she gave an update on the flyers, and I believe there are going to be more updates to come. I believe something having to do with trash disposal, perhaps. Because that was a question that was circulating around this week. The Healthcare Committee, Dick Altman, met with Joey and brought him up to date on the mission of the Healthcare Committee, what we achieved during the past year and what we're still hoping to achieve. One of the things, we had the resident fair just last week, and the Healthcare Committee did very well. They had 7 new volunteers that signed up for what is called the Friends of the Oaks program. The Friends of the Oaks, as separated from the Guardian Angels. The Guardian Angels also got 2 people on their committee, 2 new people. Guardian Angels are a one-on-one program with skilled nursing. The Friends of the Oaks are those of us in independent living who would like to go over to the Oaks to help be with people in the Oaks and entertain them, play cards, those who play instruments, and all sorts of things, just sit and talk. But it's a different program entirely, and they're 2 separate things. We did learn, Dick also is the representative to the Oaks from the Healthcare Committee to tune in. He goes to their monthly meetings to make sure that their needs are covered and to make sure that socially they're very much a part of Village on the Green. And we did learn through his last meeting that the Green Horizons had only been circulated to people at the Oaks, to assisted living, upon request. And we would like that to be changed. We would like the Green Horizons, because that shows all our activities, our calendars. They have separate calendars over there. We have separate calendars here. But for those people in independent living, they should be able to get what our social schedule is. So we will be addressing that. Let's see, Plant Ops, Steve and Arlene had just come back from a cruise. So Steve didn't have too terribly much to report except on the wells, and Joey covered that. I believe you did, didn't you, Joey?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So we're taken care of on the wells. Now our social committee, Barbara Grossman, who's a council member at large and also sits on the social committee, talked about the Mingle Party, that it wasn't well attended by new residents, and that perhaps new residents didn't realize it was a dinner. Actually, I didn't realize it was a dinner. I didn't remember it that way. I thought it was a cocktail party. But anyway, that is something that we do. I believe the Mingle Party is maybe every 2 months on our calendar, and it's meant for the new residents and those of us who want to meet them to come and share dinner together. It's a great deal of fun. It's awfully nice, and so we just need to promote that a little bit better, I think, in the future. the resident fair generally had only 9 new members, new residents who attended. It was well attended by those who were promoting their different social groups and clubs, and we all sat around and talked to one another, but only 9 new members came, and I think it's an awful lot of work to put on the resident fair, and I think maybe we need to rethink, I don't know how often we do it, when we do it, or whatever, but that'll be taken under advisement in the next committee. Let's see, Stan with the Communications Committee talked about the Apple devices group is having good attendance, and he's hoping to do similar for the Android people. Stan, am I covering this correctly?
Just ask people to sign up for it.
And, oh yes, and to sign up for it. And we are also hoping, I think you all know Peter Vasquez's name very well. Peter is so astute in these things, and we're hoping to be able to get him available to hold classes to help us along. If it isn't Peter, it might be Philip, who I don't, or maybe not, I don't.
But I'm trying to get Peter to give a class on using the TiVo properly.
Oh, on using the TiVo properly. Okay, that's what that was about. The Brady Wilkins group have been pushing hard to go around to the different buildings to talk to newcomers and residents generally, just as a fundraising thing, but newcomers particularly because there are tax implications to donate to to make charitable contributions. And of course, we would love everybody to do it for Brady Wilkins, but you can make charitable contributions to whomever you want. But it's particularly necessary for people moving in the first year here, because there are tax implications for you to do that. And this is a service that our group, Steve Nash particularly, since he's a tax person, wants people to know about at Village on the Green. And many of the buildings have held these, and those who haven't and would like to make appointments, please call Basil or Steve, and we'll set that up. Then next we went to the reports from our building and villa representatives. Kathy Walton, whose name is spelled C-A-T-H-Y, I'm going to get that right one of these days, mentioned that Frank Howard, who is due on February 15th, and Joey mentioned Frank Howard as being one who has already given a reference for a new resident, which is fantastic. And they're also looking to use a model apartment for Building A meetings. As you know, Building A's lounge has been out of commission I can't imagine how long now, since the hurricane. And they really don't have any place for their residents to go, because not all residents are so mobile that they can go whizzing around to different lounges. So anyway, they're trying to come up with a model apartment that they can use for their meetings, maybe every month or so. Leo Smith for Building B, they're planning monthly meetings. He didn't give a schedule, but they're hoping to use the Sable when they do. Della talked about their successful party, and they had done their presentation with Steve Nash. Larry Herbert, also for Building D, talked about their party. Building E, George Bryant moved from his temporary location into Building E306. I believe, was George in Building, I'm not sure which building, Building A. Okay, he moved from A to Building E. And Charlotte Karsh is scheduled to move into E310. Next Tuesday, which would have been just yesterday, I guess. Sam Peck reported about the hallway lights. They're very thankful for them. I know there are a few comments about the wattage or the lumens or whatever goes on with the LED lighting, but anyway, Joey said they're taking care of that. Dr. Abbas had a good meeting with his Villa 2 group, and they did the Brady Wilkins lecture or thing for the newcomers, and also Chris Atkinson spoke from Oaks Therapy. Chris does a wonderful job giving well, heaven knows that I'm a big proponent of the therapy department at the Oaks. I think they do a wonderful job over there, and then Chris brings special programs to I believe that's maybe once a week here in the Longwood Room, and they too are very informative. And that was about it for the council meeting. We had two other businesses. One won the Super Bowl, Stan. Tickets are available, have been available since Monday. They're $1 per square. It's open to all of us and team members as well in the airlock. So that's that. Now another bit of something that I told Basil that I would mention for him has to do with the UCF program, UCF Life program. That's once a week on Tuesdays, and UCF doesn't have a waiting list, and they automatically in the fall, their current membership renews, or their members get to renew. But they have put out a thing that if you register in February, you will be on the list to join UCF in the fall after their regular memberships renew. And there are years when you've waited 2 and 3 years to be on this UCF Life waiting list for your name to come up. So this is a pretty good deal if you want to fill it out in February. I don't know, Ron, am I saying this correctly or should I be saying more?
You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you.
And the essence of the program is to provide elders with a learning opportunity.
Well, I guess I didn't say that, did I?
Let's see how much this helps. And what you're saying is right now is the time to fill out a form to get on the list for membership coming next year.
Yes.
Who has the forms?
I understand that.
I will tell you, there's a door hanger that looks like this
Okay.
that should be coming out Friday, and it gives you the link. It's yellow on here, but it's the link to UCF, and you just go to that and make your arrangements that way, as I understand it.
That's how it happens, is you go to that location that the link takes you to, and there will be a form there that you can add your name and contact information, and they'll come back and send you an invitation later on in the spring.
And that's right, or call Basil, and he'll do something about that.
If you have other questions, ask Basil.
Yes, right. And the thing is, Village on the Green does support this in a wonderful way in that they will bus you over there. The bus leaves early, 7:30 in the morning, but the lectures are just wonderful. Sometimes there's one, sometimes there are two. They're stimulating, they're just wonderful, wonderful lectures for those who have the time to do that. And that's every Tuesday, once a week, that this program goes on. It's a wonderful thing for seniors. So with that, are there any questions from me? Yes.
Okay. I've heard a rumor that they're talking about doing away with the student servers and the Brady Wilkins Scholarship. How, is that true, or just a rumor, or what?
Well, no, it's not true, but as far as that goes. What they're going to do in the dining room in culinary, the pay scale has gone up for our servers. And at the same time, what they said at that initial culinary meeting was that they were going to be weighing whether it'd be advisable to maybe have some professional servers as well as student servers. Not do away with the student servers, but just have fewer of them. And no, that doesn't do away with Brady Wilkins particularly. We've had the threat of not having student servers at all before, but my understanding from the culinary meeting that day was this: there are plenty of our communities that do have student servers, and they do value them. So I don't think they're going to do away with them. Now, am I correct about this, Joey? Okay, I think I've got that right. Yeah, no, we don't want to be threatened. Anything else from anybody? No? Well, with that, my goodness, it's 25 to 12. This is quite early for us. Let's adjourn this. Our next meeting will be the first Thursday in March for the council, and it'll be March, Joey told us whatever the date was for the resident meeting. Thank you all.